Hello, hello. Happy almost Friday, everybody, or I guess whatever day of the week that you're watching this, because we record all of these conversations on the Ladies Get Paid LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube platforms. I'm Claire Wasserman, by the way, founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform, global community, and book all about helping women earn more and live better. As part of that mission, we invite other women who also share that mission and tackle it in different ways. We've got finance coaches, executive coaches, wellness coaches, and Elizabeth Pearson here today. She's technically an executive coach, but she's actually going to be talking a little bit about how wellness tips, you can use them in your career, specifically in the subject of stuckness. So I want to welcome Elizabeth here. Just before I have her go into her story, I want to also shout out the fact that she is also an author of a fantastic book called Career Confinement.
Yes.
We are going to be dropping those links on the Ladies Get Paid LinkedIn page, so make sure that you are following us there. You can also find us on social at Ladies Get Paid, and of course, ladiesgetpaid.com. Elizabeth, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's way overdue. I have to just point out how much I love your jacket hanging in the back. I've got a couple pieces of wild feminist stuff as well, and I think that it's a wonderful collection of women who own things like that and wear them proudly. So I love that. So just to give some people a little bit of background on me, I spent 15 years in corporate America in consumer packaged goods sales. So I worked for Vitamin Water when I was a startup, and then went on to stay at Coca-Cola and run national accounts for them. And I did that a few other times with smaller brands, built them to scale and then sale. And then at some point, I just figured like I really didn't like it when I was getting performance reviews. Does anybody else not like that? I mean, I didn't like it because somebody was literally sitting there telling me my value and my worth. And I had a real issue with that, Claire. Like, number one, I was always underpaid. Now, especially, I know that. But I just didn't love somebody else kind of having the control over my freedom, because ultimately money and financial security is freedom. So I went out on my own, and I thought, the best women to coach are people who were basically me 10, 15 years ago. So women in male dominated fields. I thrive in the executive. So anybody who's like an executive, so VP, senior VP, up to C-suite, or a founder of their company. Those are the women that I work with. And I think a lot of times we can look at those women with those kind of titles and we think, oh, they're made in the shade. They've got it pretty good, right? Like everything must be good. They definitely make enough money. I mean, some of these women are making over 500 a year, right? Up into the multiple seven figures, but they feel stuck too. And so sometimes it's usually one of two women that reach out. They're women who've climbed the ladder and they've gotten to the top, and it's not what they were expecting. They're still not fulfilled. Or maybe they've climbed the wrong ladder and they decide, hey, I don't feel fulfilled not because there isn't anything else to do and it wasn't what I expected. It's because I never took the time to get to know me and try to really pinpoint what it is I wanted to do with this life before I ever started. A lot of times we'll just default into a career right out of college. Or if you didn't go to college, just anything to just kind of like start getting paid, right? And very rarely do we have that moment in time. A lot of times it's after a layoff or something, or if you're on maternity leave, which you'll experience. Mm-hmm. But I think those are the moments where you're like, hey, do I like what I'm doing? Or like, how bad do I not want to go back to work right now? And I think if you're one of those people who goes on a vacation for a few days and you just like, you get physical ailments, knowing that you have to go back to work or return to the office, that's a problem. Like we should be paying attention to that, right? Like we should be taking into account our physical wellness as it relates to our career wellness.
Yeah, I know. It's like we try to rely on what our minds are telling us, which of course can be extremely confusing. Like whose voice is that, right? And yet we have this whole literal body of wisdom that usually is pretty clear, actually, whereas our minds are unclear. Our bodies are usually clear about the direction to go in. However, we're not accustomed to either A, listening to it, or B, trusting it. So I guess for you, since we're talking about using wellness tips, but also tactical tools to quote, break free from, stuckness in your career. What might be some first steps that folks take? I mean, by the way, feel free to talk about clients, protecting their identifying details, of course, but if someone were to have a session with you, like what would the first sessions or first steps look like in this work together?
For sure. I think people might not want to hear this. I'm a big fan of meditation. I know that drum has been beat to death for many years now. It's not just the in thing to do. It's more mainstream, but I really do feel like we have a 22-year-old version of us, or the, right out of college version of you that had the big dreams. Like, she didn't see why she couldn't be the president of a company, or she didn't understand why it might take a lot longer than she thought to be financially independent, or that someday she might get in a relationship where she doesn't have financial power. We need to get back in alignment with her. We actually need to give her some space to come to the forefront and guide us, because a lot of times that 22-year-old you, or maybe it's a 17 or the 7-year-old you that had these big wild dreams, we've told that voice to sit down and shut up while we're making money. We're in our earning years, this or that, just be quiet, we'll get to you later. And she starts to get pissed off, and she will start to act up. You'll feel restless. You'll kind of realize that, hey, I feel a little trapped. I feel a little stuck. So that's the first thing. You'll start to feel that, I don't want to do this anymore. Or maybe there isn't this path to fulfillment that I envisioned, right? So it's that initial awareness. And then what our rational brain tries to do is, okay, I'm going to figure this out. Let me just figure this out like I do everything else. And what I say to clients who come to me in this state is, I say, we're not going to figure any of that out. She knows. 22-year-old you knows. She's actually up here to guide us, to be with us. She is that voice. And when you say, do we trust that voice? Do we listen to that voice? The voice who's telling you you're a badass and you should be making more and you can do all of that, that is her. That is your soul. That is 22-year-old you. Fear, the one that says, oof, I don't know, there's 2 other people going for that job and they're way more experienced than I am, and I really shouldn't try to negotiate this offer. I should just take it because we're on the verge of a recession, which we're not, dude. Quit. I mean, that's another manipulation. There's plenty out there. I really believe so. There's plenty of jobs right now. You can get one. But if you fall into that trap of scarcity, limited resources, I have to compete really hard to get anything, then that's exactly what you're going to do. That is not the 22-year-old you. That is not the soul voice. That is this resistance voice, right? So resistance will pop up anytime you're trying to grow or expand. It is the equal and opposing force that will try to keep you stuck. This can also be like a mother who's like, oh, sweetie, this is a good job. You went to medical school. Why would you not want to be a doctor anymore? You're a lawyer now. Why would you ever not do that? That is resistance. Your mom is well-meaning, but she's trying to keep you in a box. She's trying to keep you in a way that is comfortable for her to see you, right? So some of those people, I tell people, it's like you're planting a garden. There's these little sproutlings, these little things that are trying to grow and come in. And there are these people stomping around in these big effing boots, unbeknownst that there are these little seedlings that they're crushing. So until those seedlings get strong, we need to build a fence. We need to build a fence around those dreams, around those aspirations, around that new job, around that book you're writing, around that side hustle you've been thinking about. And maybe now you're going to get a domain and get a website. Maybe you're going to start that consulting practice. Don't tell people. Unless you've got a ride or die bestie or a coach or a partner that you can really trust, zip it. Don't say anything. Because those people are the boots in your garden. And unbeknownst to them, they are killing things with that, oh, really? Or just the pause when they're not happy for you. It can invite doubt, which is a game ender. Once doubt gets in and takes a hold, you can be done. So long answer to a short question, you have to get still and you have to listen to her. And I think the most effective way to do that is through meditation. Mm-hmm. I say a couple times a week is good enough. A couple times a week, 20 minutes, you're good.
Yeah. I'm going to add on to that for a quick second in terms of, for anybody who's like, oh, meditation, I can't sit still, or I'm not good at it. That's actually the whole point. It's not about getting good at it. It's about the practice of coming back to stillness. So something that was actually sort of game changing for me is when I began to meditate, which by the way, I would start with even walking meditations or holding my cup of coffee with, so it's like, you don't have to have total quiet around you. Like you can actually in a way make it sort of active or integrated into your life. But I would have these moments of my brain is wandering and I would start to get pissed at it. And then I thought, ooh, no, these are opportunities. Yes, come back to stillness. And so every time that my mind would wander or the insecure voice would come up, I totally flipped the script from getting mad at myself to getting kind of excited that it was me flexing my meditative muscle. And I just would leave these meditations. It was like 100%. You do a fantastic job every time.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. I tell people meditation is like shoes. Not every pair is going to feel good. But there are tons of pairs and you actually really need them. So keep trying on different pairs. Like I have Apple Music or whatever. And so there are many playlists on there and I could even link some of them, like some recommendations, or I could give people free access to my app, which is free. And it's got all these resource hubs with like meditations and free exercises they could do if you're not in the financial position to hire a coach yet. There's tons of free stuff out there, so utilize that. But there are like Akashic Records readings meditation, there are hemisync meditation, chakra balancing. A chakra balancing meditation, like a dude is literally talking the whole time, but you're almost in this like lucid dream kind of state. And so you don't have to like raw dog it like the first time. Like I'm just going to sit in lotus and just make sure I'm not thinking of anything. Like to your point, that's not the point. Like do a walking meditation with your dog. Yeah, like something else or a cat.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that. And by the way, for folks watching live, feel free to, ask any questions or jump in with your own tips. We love to hear from you. So stuckness. All right. So the first step is getting clear on the resistance, not fighting the resistance, sort of embracing it as like it is meant to help you, learning the distinction between kind of like intuition voice and insecurity voice. All right. So we're getting more familiar with ourselves, but we're still, we haven't created momentum yet. We're still in that stuckness.
Yeah.
What comes next?
And another, just to like end on that one, like keep the people with the boots out of your garden. I can't stress this enough. Like the people who might, if you have a girlfriend who you wonder is just really like a cheerleader for you blindly, don't tell her. Like just don't. Like I think there's so much competition out there, and now even with social media too, it can just be so exacerbated. Like that is a huge piece, is like don't tell people that you can't trust to just like blindly back you, because that's what you need right now. You need people to blindly back you. You don't want people coming in with the reality of the situation. Screw that. You have plenty of reality going through your head and that ego voice, so you don't need that.
What about accountability though? What about accountability? If you put a person out there publicly, hey, I'm going to try to commit to going to Pilates twice a week. Just saying that, it's like, am I setting myself up? Is that good? I mean, that's a different example. That's not stuckness, but
yeah. I think if it's something that you can do in a good headspace, like again, I'm the kind of person though, like if I wake up and don't want to go to Pilates, I ain't going because it doesn't feel like it's in alignment. I will find something else. I will go on a walk or I will do something else. I won't just bail totally, but I won't do shit I don't want to do. And I think that there's a big difference between this hustle mentality of like grind it out, keep pushing until it breaks. But women are breaking themselves on that journey. Like, I think it's okay to say, I can pick from this toolbox of things I want to do today. Maybe I don't feel like updating my LinkedIn today. And I mean, my God, Claire, you and I know how powerful LinkedIn is. Like, ladies, you have to keep your LinkedIn tight. Like, there's so many other candidates out there right now who are paying professionals to do their LinkedIns. Like, if your LinkedIn looks like sloppy, you're out before you even start. That is your first impression. So that was probably like number 2. What I tell people is you have to invest in your LinkedIn. You have to invest time. But if you wake up and you're like, I don't feel like doing LinkedIn today, it's like, okay, but then you can't just go binge Housewives. Like you have to pick from something else in the box of like tactical things to move you forward. I think right now too, personally, everybody should have a website. Like LinkedIn is your webpage, But websites are so cheap and easy to make right now. I mean, there's so many AI platforms that will literally make you a website. You should have a website because I don't think LinkedIn has enough space, frankly, to showcase all of your genius and all of your accomplishments. And it's just one of those things, right? Like the last mile is never crowded. So if you're with other candidates, but you actually have like a really tight LinkedIn and you have your own website that they can get a little bit more information about like who you are as a person, what are your hobbies, things like that, where do you like to travel to, it just gives you like an edge. So that is a tactical thing, right? Like other than just what they know to do on like LinkedIn profiles, like get yourself a website. Because if you're out of work right now, you should be entertaining fractional work or consulting. And I have people say, yeah, but then I'm not going to get the full-time gig that I want. And I'm like, okay, but here's the deal. This is the coffee date. Like if you're dating, this is going to get coffee with somebody. It doesn't mean that you're not going to go to dinner at Mastro's later. You might, but you're going to have the coffee first. Like people are much more hesitant to just bring on somebody at between 3 and 500K, let's say, full time, if they haven't like spent a little time with you. So I think it can be this wonderful lead in to see if you like them and if they like you before you like commit to the big date, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Quick question or quick comment there. A lot of us feel like we need to have everything lined up in order to present ourselves, whether it's creating the website, posting on LinkedIn, going to a networking event. So meaning I have to know what it is that I want to do next, or I have to have that job, right? And we're so afraid to put ourselves out there as human beings. We want to be like the employee, right, first.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious for you, what might you say for somebody who is in the transition phase of how, and I know I'm moving a little bit more in a direction of like how you talk about yourself to others, versus how you talk about yourself to yourself. But yeah, like if you're not sure yet what the next move is, or maybe you do, but you're not there yet, like how do you express yourself to the rest of us?
Yeah. Well, I think try to know your audience as best you can, right? So if it is somebody that you're talking to at a networking event or you're reaching out to kind of cold on LinkedIn, I think it's great to understand like what their roles are, what their company is, what some pretty obvious pain points might be, and then tailor what you're going to say in your pitch of yourself to them around that. So if I am shooting to consult or do something for a very large company, or like say for you, right, you speak, you're a keynote speaker. Mm-hmm. So if you know that you're going to be in a room of people who could hire you to do a keynote, you're probably going to pitch yourself differently than you would if it was, a room of your peers or like that kind of networking where you feel like, well, maybe we could be buddies and we could share some opportunities, right? So I think like know your audience before you do the pitch. And then try to kind of curate that content to that audience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
I don't think you have to know. I think we could all do many different things. It's just dependent on like the opportunity that's in front of us.
Yes. And I think that it's not bad to express what it is that you want, right? Or the direction that you think you want to go in, right? Because that allows somebody to help you. And if you've come to any of my networking talks or our job seeker support group, I'm constantly talking about the best way to connect with others is not by asking them for help, but rather offering up support, right? So if you're in a position where, you don't yet have the job that you want, but you have a sense of what it might be, or there's a couple of dream companies you'd be interested in, it's okay to say it. Like, I want to do climate change. Do you know any opportunities, right? Like that, don't feel like you need to have it all buttoned up in order to do the networking.
Yeah. I love that you said that too about the like, do for somebody else before you ask them to do for you. That's a big one. I'm sure you get hit up too by people like, oh, I saw you do a talk at so-and-so. Can you put me in touch with whoever booked you for that speech or whatever? And you're like, ooh, okay. Like I want to help out other women and I want to be, there's enough sun for everybody. But at the same time, like some people are really assertive, like just put me in touch with a hiring manager or this or that. And I'm like, do I know you? You know what I mean? Like, but I think it's very much like if you come from a place of that was amazing. Maybe they shared a post about you speaking on a stage. Maybe they asked you, like, how they could support you. Maybe they wrote you a LinkedIn recommendation just based off that speech they saw. Like, there's so many things that you can do for people that you don't even really like, quote unquote, know, just to make it a little less cringy if you like go in for the ask. But people aren't doing that. Like, especially on LinkedIn. I don't know about you. I get pitched, I mean, hundreds of emails, I feel like, a day. And it's like, can I get 15 minutes or can I get 30 minutes? I'm like, time is the most precious thing. Yeah. So please don't like cold message somebody and ask for their time. Like, you're not going to get it. You're going to turn them off immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, I've said it enough times publicly that that's a pet peeve of mine that nobody does it anymore. So yeah. I've taught them to, what they do is, what you should say is, how can I help ladies get paid? What can I do to support you? And so now I've like developed relationships with women who will send me, you know, shout out, like when journalists are looking for sources to put in an article, right? That might be a good fit for us, or they'll repost my events. Like, that stuff takes them 2 seconds and is enormously helpful. And I see it. So
and
in
you give those too. Like you actively walk the talk. Like even this today, right? Like, you bring stuff to people. And I think that maybe they might not have something for you right then, but by God, at some point they will. And they're going to remember things. Like, that's the other thing, is people remember how you treat them. They remember if you unsolicitedly, you know, wrote something nice for them or shared something or referred them. They keep track of that. And even if they don't, the universe will fling it back to you from another direction and somebody else, but it will always come back to you stronger.
Yeah. Are there any success stories? I just love to hear folks, you know, it really helps us visualize how maybe we could be that person that you might want to share. Again, you know, feel free to obscure details.
Yeah. Well, one is kind of pertinent. Like, well, you'll maybe see yourself in it. It was a woman who came to me who was pregnant, and well, she was pregnant, I think, after our first session. So we had like one session together. So 2 weeks after we started working together, she got pregnant. She had a 2-year-old at home. She had worked with her dad on like a company business. Like, these people who work with their family, oof, like, that's a whole book there. You talk about women feeling trapped. It's in these family businesses where their dad is like, literally, like, one woman gets paid one lump sum at the end of the year. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's nothing, but her dad pays for her kids to go to daycare and all of this stuff. I mean, you talk about like, the roots are in there deep. She could not get out. She could not see a way out. She had a 2-year-old at home. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to build a resume. She really didn't have a resume to speak of. We're going to get you a 6-figure job. She lived in Newport, California, which is not cheap. And then the next week she tells me she's pregnant. And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're not telling anybody that you're pregnant, like, at all. We're just going to go out there and get interviews. And through my network, I was able to get her a couple of interviews. One of them, she ended up landing. And the whole time she's freaking out about this pregnancy. And I kept saying to her, don't say anything. And then she lands, and she's, no joke, probably 7 months pregnant, like very visibly pregnant. And she's in Orlando for this meeting, and everybody's jaw just kind of drops. And she's texting me like, oh my God, I think they're going to fire me. And I'm like, well, they can't. Like, they can't now, actually.
Yeah.
And she was so worried that this was going to ruin her. And it didn't. They loved her. Like, they took a couple of days to get used to it, but it's none of their business. Like, ladies, we are out there giving away way too much information that is nobody's business. Like, health problems you have, if you're planning on getting pregnant, if you are pregnant, if you're about to get a divorce, if you're this or that, don't say any of this stuff. Like, there are very real biases out there, and discrimination happens. And like, we just stop talking. Like, most of the time, you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to explain things. All you have to do is really lean into your experience and lead with that, and then stop. Like, stop talking. And it all worked out. She got promoted. They actually moved her to Florida to be at the headquarters. She's thriving. It's all good.
Amazing. Absolutely love it.
But she really got trapped. That was legit.
And tell us also about your book a little bit more. And also some final, in our last couple of minutes, just like anything you haven't shared that you feel like you want to share. And of course, we'll go into where folks can connect with you.
Yeah. The book has way more case studies like that. So it's anywhere from like women who are quote unquote getting put out to pasture. Maybe they're mid-50s, and all of a sudden their boss starts asking them, hey, when are you going to retire? Have you thought about retirement? Which is also like totally illegal, but people get asked that all the time, kind of like pushed out. There's also women who have come back from mat leave and their job is different. There's women in there who just climbed the wrong mountain, if you will, and are unhappy. And the book goes through exactly what I did with each of these 13 women to get them unstuck. So I really do feel like everybody's out here and we're supposed to live these epic, huge lives. So if you're watching this and there's a little something inside you that's like, I feel like maybe I could be happier, but it's too scary and I should just be okay with the way it is. This is your sign that like you should not be okay with the way it is. It's never too late to change your circumstances. And there are wonderful women and books and resources out there to help you do it. And you don't have to pay a bunch of money.
Awesome. I love it. And what was the book writing process like for you?
Dude, it was rough.
Yeah. No, it's hard. It's so hard.
It's so hard. Mine was 5.5 years. And I tell people, I say it was like being pregnant for 5.5 years. Like it was rough. And I had publishers turn me down left and right because they didn't understand the spirituality career concept. But I think when you believe in yourself, you can make it happen. So it was tough, but I don't know about you. Are you thinking about doing another book?
Yeah, I mean, I'd had the idea for another book, and I worked with an agent on the pitch, and it sort of the response was like, I'm not quite the expert yet in that subject matter, which was not incorrect, because part of the reason I wanted to write about the subject was because I was personally very fascinated to learn more.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, right? Like you got to learn a lot, you got to be the expert, then you write the book. And I was sort of hoping I could become the expert as I was writing the book. And just thought about how we could translate the 60 pages of a proposal into a program, which it became the Get Into Your Life Bootcamp, all about reinvention. I'm just personally very fascinated and moved by anyone who can not be trapped by their current circumstances. So the thought of being, quote, self-made, the momentum that you create within yourself, it's just fascinating. Like, what are the things that you need to get moving, the internal, the external, so that we're not just stuck going, well, you know what, they had privilege or they had luck. Like, can you self-create? And of course you can, because we see lots of examples of it. So I really wanted to break down what do these people have, again, both within them, but also around them. I mean, in other words, it's how do you create opportunity?
Yeah. Well, I think that there was a study that said, like, of all these successful people that had been interviewed, one main common thread was that a lot of them had childhood trauma. So you talk about like, oh, maybe you had privilege, maybe this. I don't know. I think a lot of people had rough childhoods who are super successful right now, and they have a hunger and they just have this kind of like relentless pursuit, probably for external approval. That's something for a psychiatrist to evaluate. But I don't know about you, like my childhood wasn't great. It was rough. And I think that it does just make you like a little bit more hungry and a little bit more fearless, because when you've already experienced hardship, it's like there's less to fear, I think. And so I think that's it. It's like the faith of it all, that like it can get better and I can control how much better it gets.
Yeah, there's a class that I created also out of this that I call how to make money from lemons, that I taught for NASA actually. And I literally started with, here are all the like shitty things that happened in my life. It wasn't like a sob fest, but just like, again, like we were lawsuit, pandemic, divorce. It wasn't just shitty. It was just like any disruption, right, in my life. And I was like, let me now tell you all the things, the amazing, the best things in my life. The correlation between the two, it was not even a winding path. It was like directly related. Ladies get paid. It came from the wage gap and the leadership gap. Something bad is the reason that something great was created. So, I mean, again, to me, it's all about growth and learning. And that is in and of itself momentum, but it requires a series of things, again, both internal and external, to get there. We are technically at time. So I'm going to have you tell everybody where people can find you, follow you, most importantly, pay you. And then for everybody watching not on LinkedIn right now, come on over to the Ladies Get Paid LinkedIn page, because Elizabeth's going to pop in under the recording. She's going to just put some links in there so you can just connect with her directly.
Yeah, my website is just elizabethpearson.com, one word. TikTok and Instagram is at Coach Elizabeth Pearson. The book is Career Confinement. Those will all be linked there. Final words, I would just say to women that you're never trapped. It's just in your mind. You just have to trust yourself, and you are a good horse to bet on. So you got to run.
The best. Awesome. Thank you so much. And also, where can people find your book?
Yeah, they can find it anywhere books are sold, but Amazon is the easiest way. And there's an Audible too if you want to listen to it while you're walking or something.
Love it. Love it. That was fun. I hope you enjoyed doing yours because I thought it was I got a kick out of reading it aloud.
Mine was torture. But I remember you saying yours was fun. I'm like, mine was hell, but thank you.
I mean, it wasn't easy, but I just listen. I won the high school drama award, so it was just like I got to live out that fantasy of being an actor, or at least a voice actor. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for being here. And for those watching live and after the fact, really awesome to see. Yeah, I mean, Jeff said, time is the most precious resource. Good stuff, ladies. Hi, Elizabeth. The work that is internal is monumental. Well said. Thank you both. That was awesome. So come back. We have lots of coaches who come on every week. Best way to find out about who's next, ladiesgetpaid.com/subscribe, free newsletter. Oh, Haley just posted. This is what happens. We're at time, but now we got all the people posting. So do you have 2 seconds to stay on?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So Haley said, I'd be so interested to know whether you've ever examined the success stories to see if the common thread is more of an internal entrepreneurial, fearless personality versus happening to have that external blind support system in place. I'm sure it's a combo of both. Can I jump? I want to just answer that real quick, and then Elizabeth, you can add to it. So you totally nailed it, Haley, by saying the word entrepreneurial, because that is the thread in anybody who self-creates. Like that is, I mean, it's creating a business, right? Like it's creating opportunity. But one thing I do want to be clear is there was fear in all of this. Like it's not mutually exclusive, right? Where you're like, I'm fearless, so therefore I will act. No, it is actually the acting when afraid that is the key. It is being able to hold two diametrically opposed things, or sort of many things at once. And then, that external blind support system in place. I mean, you could elaborate on that maybe, Haley, a little bit more about what you mean. I do think there is a bit, I mean, to me, blind support, I sort of think of the word that Elizabeth had used earlier, which is faith a little bit. There is a belief that life will be better and you can make it so. That has to be there. But the problem is, though, if you've been told your whole life, or you haven't seen evidence, right, that you can do it, it's like, where do you, or how do you develop that kind of faith? But Elizabeth, I don't know if you want to jump in on anything.
Yeah. No, I second everything you said, but I think I understand what Haley says too, because a few times I said, like you can't have the boots in the garden, like you have to have some people that blindly support you.
Okay.
I do believe that. Like I have an amazing husband, and there were so many days I was literally in that chair sobbing and being like, I can't do this. I just got to go back and get like a real job. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm not, like at all experienced enough for this. And he was like, no. He's like, we're not, like, that's why my book is this tiger in a cage. He's like, we're not going back to the cage. You left the cage. And I am the kind of person, I had to burn the boats. Like I had to totally disconnect from my previous life. And if I didn't have him saying, we're doing this, we're not going back, then I absolutely would have gone back to the cage. So that's why I say, like, get a coach, get your partner, if you can really trust them to hold you accountable and not let you retreat, not let you bail on your dreams. Get a good girlfriend, somebody that you can say, listen, I'm going to lean on you for the next 6 months and don't let me turn away. And you'll see this too, Claire, if you decide to breastfeed. It's like breastfeeding. I told my husband, I said, there are going to be days I do not want to do this. Do not let me off the hook. And he's like, no, but I think you really should stop. And I'm like, nope, I can't hear that. I don't want the reality. I told you for the next 3 months, I want to do this. You have to hold me there. And he did, so like, I do think you need somebody who's just going to be a blind cheerleader for you, because I think if you're really listening to your intuition and your idea or whatever is that strong, you have to just empty the tank trying.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a vulnerable thing to do, to put yourself out there, to try something new. Vulnerable, it can feel, I mean, to me, that manifests as like a loneliness. So therefore we need community, and that can absolutely be people you don't know, by the way, which is why I started Ladies Get Paid. Right. To me, I think the power in strangers who look and seem so different from you, but yet have a universal experience is even more powerful. And then I'll just comment on thing Haley just said, but I have to imagine a big part of getting unstuck is often a function of totally eliminating the external factors or people that may be putting the obstacles in place or preventing you from making these changes in real time. I think you both just addressed this, so thank you. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just not possible, right? Like if you have to go into your job, like, there are certain realities that you might not be able to remove, but there could be shifts that are made. And that to me is a whole question or conversation around boundary setting, right? Which women are not so great at.
And just not caring what people say. I mean, excuse my language, but I say catch a case of the efforts. Like, you know what I mean? Like Shirley might not, you know what I mean? Like be a cheerleader for you, but at some point you just stop listening to Shirley. Like this voice through meditation gets so loud. It's like water off a duck's back when Shirley comes with her BS. You're like, okay, Shirley, that's you. You know what I mean? But you can just tune it out.
Mm-hmm. So great. Well, thanks for staying 8 minutes over, and I appreciate y'all jumping in on the comments after I was like, come, we love engagement. It's okay if it's at the end. But yeah, speaking of connecting, reconnecting. So I'm Claire Gets Paid on Instagram, and then of course, Claire Wasserman on LinkedIn. ClaireWasserman.com. Few slots open for coaching clients. Elizabeth also has availability. She'll be posting her stuff underneath this recording in LinkedIn. But again, ladiesgetpaid.com/subscribe so that you don't miss our next coaches. Thank you, Elizabeth. You're the best.
Thanks, Claire.
All right, now go get paid. Bye.